So we're here today to talk about how you can deal better in the midst of a crisis. And one thing that I've observed is really interesting is that when we are in a crisis, faced with lots of stress, a lot of us revert to what we call our old survival strategies. By that I mean, when you were young, you probably did certain behaviors, certain survival strategies, things that you think you needed to do, roles that you needed to play in order to survive. So for instance, when I think back to my childhood, when things got really stressful, I knew that my survival strategy was to achieve. Because if I could achieve good grades, good results, then my parents would be pleased with me and the stress would go away. So how that shows up in today's COVID situation is that I still am the person feeling that I need to achieve. And I'm trying to check off the to-do list. I'm trying to be really productive even in the downtime. And that strategy can work for me. It can allow me to get stuff done, but that strategy can also really get in the way. So for instance, it leads to me feeling burned out sometimes, or even alienating me from some of my friends who just want me to chill out. What about your survival strategy, Greg?
So the role that I took on was that of a class clown, if you will, always having fun, making light of things, eternal optimist, never looking really at problems that might be right in front of me. Of course, that allowed me to have a really great childhood, have a lot of fun, and even nowadays I find myself being very optimistic, already planning my next holiday, planning of all the great things that are going to happen once COVID-19 is over. How it gets in the way, though, is that it actually doesn't allow me to get in touch with some of the more challenging emotions that I might be facing, the anxiety, the stress, the concern about myself, the business, about others. And it also may actually alienate others, because if I'm always in a good mood, always talking about the fun stuff, the inspirational quotes, it might be more challenging for others that are not feeling on a high like this to really relate to me.
Yeah, so we've put some examples of some popular survival strategies that we tend to see. Some examples like, for instance, the worrier, the person who feels that they need to fulfill that role of worrying about something. Or for instance, the controller, the person who feels that it's their responsibility, that everything's their responsibility and they need to save everyone or control everything.
Then there's the role of the escape artist. As a child, perhaps this person was lost in their fantasy world, reading books, having imaginary friends, being very imaginative. How that might show up today is escaping also into a fantasy world, perhaps delivered by Netflix, watching Netflix episodes back to back all day, or kind of spacing out and not really engaging with what's around them. How it might create problems is that it doesn't allow them to feel the emotions that are rising in the present moment and really connect others through this crisis.
Yeah, so whatever survival strategies you had, we all had either one, a predominant one, or we may have had a few survival strategies in different contexts with different people. So you may have been a blend of the peacemaker and the worrier, or the rebel as well as the controller, for instance. We want you to take a moment to reflect on what was your role, what was your survival strategy when you were growing up, and do it from a place of curiosity rather than with an attitude of judgment, because it's about developing that kind and compassionate awareness that you did what you did when you were young, because that's what you knew to make sense of the world around you.
Yeah, and it clearly served a purpose in terms of giving you some kind of sense of mastery, of control, of safety, and it got you over stressful situations. So in times like nowadays, COVID-19, it's not unusual for these old patterns to come back.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And another practice that can help you is actually visualizing your own face as a young child and sending yourself some positive messages of kindness for you to overcome the anxiety that you feel. And in fact, this practice is something I recommend for you to do with loved ones or people that you may be stuck at home with, or maybe even difficult individuals at work that you're feeling a little bit of friction with. If you can actually start developing that awareness and curiosity about their survival strategies and start thinking, I wonder what their survival strategy is. I wonder how they got that or developed that as a child, or what kind of sort of conditioning they had received in order to feel that way. It actually allows you to feel some empathy for them, and also maybe even some compassion for why they're acting in ways that may seem irrational to you during this crisis.
Yeah, and if they're even irritating you at times with their behaviors and their quirks, it can allow you actually to create some space and not take it so personally.
Absolutely.